my journey started the day I was born. It wasn't in my plan to live a life of suffering. When you're in the middle of dysfunction and chaos, it becomes normal for you. You don't know who you are, where you're going, or what's happening. All you know is in the moment, and the moment seems to last forever when you're in active addiction.
Okay, so that was tonight's guest, Onyx Knight. I'm Donna. This is Phoenix Fire coming to you from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis people. Let's bring in Onyx. Hello, hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your big efforts in being here tonight. Oh my God, 140. Shh. Hopefully there aren't any RCMP listening.
It's all good. So it was fun.
It was fun. It was a rush, hey? So is there anything you'd like to say before we get started?
Thank you so much for what you do and support and providing a safe space. And it's just really an honor to be here. And you guys are just amazing. Bless you.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's run this story, please. Okay, so before we jump in, I'd just like to let our viewers and listeners know that tonight's live production is title sponsored by Healing Hearts Cambo in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. If you're looking for an advanced Cambo practitioner for ceremony or simply to learn more about Cambo, reach out to Chris at 306-690-3764 or at www.healingheartscambo.ca. All right, so let's get started with, let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Oof. Well, my childhood, yeah, it was what I thought was normal. You know, it was alcohol and it was chaotic living up in small communities, being a biracial child, never really fitting in anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just never had a sense of identity. And both my parents at the time, my stepfather was an alcoholic, and my real father stepped out of my life when I was 4. And there was substance abuse in the house. And yeah, I mean, I remember bonfires and drinking what was left in the bottom of the beers, and you know, lighting cigarettes that made me feel funny, you know. I was like, oh, what's this? I think I like it. And then yeah,
so how
grew up
old
in
were
small
you?
towns.
What's your earliest memory of doing that? Just out of curiosity.
I think I had my first taste of beer. Maybe I think I was like 7 or 8. And I think I was about 11 when me and my cousins got drunk on my uncle's home brew in the basement. Yeah. And then we filled up the bottles with water. So yeah, he found out later, and of course I was the sweet innocent one, right? And I didn't admit to nothing.
Are you sure he didn't just think like, oh man, I suck at making beer when he went to drink it? It tastes like water.
Yeah, totally, right? Yeah. It was a bad batch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uncle, you suck at this.
It wasn't as good as the last one.
Yeah.
I remember I tried pulling that same shit on my dad. He had some scotch, little like sampler kits inside like these nice little containers. So yeah, I drank them and then I filled them with water, and then some special occasion came up and company was over or something. I can't remember. But anyways, I got busted, you know. It's like, why is all my scotch taste like water, Donna? Like, I didn't do it. I'm an only child and I tried to play like I didn't do it, you know.
It was the babysitter.
Yeah.
I've done that. I blame the babysitter lots. Yeah, and it was one of those growing up and not having an identity, right? And being biracial and both my parents being white was odd in those days, especially for a small French community, right? Yeah.
You said you grew up like in Manitoba, in a few different communities that were predominantly French speaking. That's a really interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
And so,
sorry,
go ahead. That happens so often because there's a delay between the two of us. So, but anyways, please continue on with your story.
Well, I grew up in Liberal St. Anne's, Beausejour, and and then eventually moved to Winnipeg, where all hell broke loose. That's really where it all began, really.
And how old were you?
Prepping. I was 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, when you say all hell broke loose, unpack that for us a bit.
Well, you know, I went to French immersion school, so there is all kinds of kids there, all kinds of shenanigans happening, right? And just that sense of wanting to belong. I always seeked out the rough crowd, right? And had my first taste of hash, and then marijuana, and then I think I was 15 when I did my first line of cocaine. Yeah.
How was that for you?
And it was amazing. It was awesome. It was everything I looked for. It was everything I needed. It was comforting. It was exciting. It was acceptance. It was non-judgmental. It was all that that good stuff.
Yeah, right. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I quite liked that stuff the first time I tried it as well. Couldn't stop talking though. Everybody kept telling me to shut up.
I was great at track.
Did you do the jaw wagging thing? You were like this?
No, I didn't. No, I never chewed. I call it eating hot dogs. I never did that. No, I never did that. I always just kind of like I sucked in my cheeks a lot though. Like
I remember doing that. Lips. Yep. Makes me think of all those models you see. You know, it's like I wonder how much coke they're on. Anyways.
That's good. That's good stuff.
So after cocaine, how long was it before you progressed? Because you said you moved into crack after, or was that kind of hand in hand?
It was like probably within months. I was at a party and I was just doing rips, and next thing you know, somebody handed me a Coca-Cola can with with some, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say how it's done, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, we don't want
And
to teach people that don't know yet.
no, right? And yeah, and I'm like, well, this looks gross. Eh, but I'll
Good.
try it.
Gonna hit that.
Try anything once, twice if I like it, hey?
Exactly. And I liked it, and I just kept on trying it, and then
Mm,
I got more sophisticated at it. I didn't use any more Coke cans. It was, yeah, I leveled up.
it leveled up. So, how old were you at this point?
I was 15.
You were still 15,
Uh,
16? Yeah.
yeah, 15, 16. And it wasn't like using every day like I was the cocaine, like the powder.
Mm,
It was, maybe once, twice a month. And um, then I started running away from home and staying out all night and just no F's given,
mm,
right? And
mm.
uh, started fighting, and I learned that I was a good fighter,
Okay.
and people would people would pay me for that.
Okay.
And so
So,
it
when you
was
made the
like,
comment that you became an entrepreneur to support your habit, is that what you were alluding to? That kind of
yeah,
activity?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. You know, yeah. It kind of changed. Instead of me getting bullied, I was the bully,
Mm,
right?
mm-hmm,
Um, I was a collector.
mm.
It's yeah.
Okay. So, when you say that you ran away from home, were your like how aware of circumstances were your parents? Like, did you just have like sort of uh obstinate sort of behavior, or did they suspect that there was maybe some substance happening? Like, were they aware of, did they ever
Well,
confront you
at the time,
basically? No.
no.
Okay.
You know, my my stepdad was he was a truck driver, so he was away a lot. And my mom, she worked, and so I was alone quite a bit.
Mm,
And it was it's not that she didn't try to give me structure, but she had no structure
mhm,
for herself.
mhm,
And I realized that at a young age, and I was kind of like, whatever, you
mhm,
know,
mhm.
um,
Did
you
you
do you
feel
and I'll do me.
do you feel a little bit of hypocrisy in a sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Fair
yeah.
enough. So you had mentioned as well uh, that by 17 you had progressed again, and I'm not going to give it away. I'm going to let
Yeah.
you tell that part of your story.
So at 16, um, I ran away to Toronto, and I met up with some people, and they took me in. And then I became a dancer, an exotic dancer. And um, I made a lot of money and a lot of opportunities. And I had a family, right?
Finally felt
And I was
community.
taking care. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I had distorted um, view of what love was, you know, some sort of structure and organized crime. So
Mm-hmm.
it was one of those, um, however you look at it, it was still a family, right? They
Mm-hmm.
still looked after me. They still cared for me, and they nurtured me.
Mm-hmm.
And And I started just running across Canada, and wherever I was dancing, that's where I started polluting those towns. And I moved a lot across Canada.
Mhm.
And then I moved to BC, and um, yeah, it was moved. I just moved a lot. And now that I look at it, I really didn't have much of a payoff other than the emotional payoff,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Um, the respect, my pockets are always empty because, I was an addict,
Mhm.
but I didn't care, right? I went to the best raves, and um, I shared beer with the most discreet and sipped champagne with the most elite. It was very much a life of
Kind of the shit you
la
see in
vida
movies.
loca.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, well, in Las Vegas.
So, so from there, I know you in roughly 1991. So I'm not sure where that is in terms of your age or, where we are in the story, but you had your daughter.
My daughter, my beautiful daughter. Yeah, she's 30 now. I got pregnant at 19, and I had her when I was 20.
Okay.
And I started to really realize that, I had to make a choice.
Mhm.
Um, and my mom at that time kind of given up on, she never really gave up on me, but she was like, I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do, and there's no stopping her. So, she was always anticipating that call,
Mhm.
um, that infamous call,
Mhm.
to come and identify my body. And
Mhm.
thank God, by the grace of God, she never did.
Mhm.
And by the grace of God, I was blessed with a beautiful little soul. And I love her more than life itself. But at that time, I still loved my drugs. Right? They still
Mhm.
had a pretty good hold on me. And I had bouts of sobriety during that time, but it wasn't until really when I was 28 that I really um, said enough's enough.
Okay.
She was 7.
Mhm.
So I was still in active addiction from the time she was born. I quit while I was pregnant with her. However, being a single parent, really having no support from my parents, and just kind of like, my mom was there, but she wasn't there about the mental abuse, like you should, just saying
Mm.
mean things that scarred me. And yeah, and so yeah.
Oh, very difficult. You said that earlier, that she had or you had been working 3 jobs to try to make ends meet.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
incredible.
that's when I tried to really get straight,
Hmm.
and I was burning out. um I did try to go straight, and by myself, and working evening shifts um, at a warehouse, and then working at a morning shift at a gas station, and then waitressing in the afternoons. It was just, and I did that for 3 years. And then
Wow.
in between then, I was still an entrepreneur because I had to support myself.
Hmm. I think it's such a sad state of affairs that a single mom, a single parent, anybody needs to work 3 jobs
Anybody?
to make ends meet. It
Yeah,
just it really disgusts me, to be honest. So,
yeah.
um, so you mentioned that um you, at some point around her 7th birthday, had stopped, or 7th year, had stopped completely. So was it just like this realization that I can't keep doing this? Or was there some pinnacle event?
Well, I was dating a guy. It's always dating a guy, right? The infamous guy. Um, and it was an abusive relationship, which I thought was love, right? Because I didn't know any better. And I tried to get away from him, and he stalked me and threatened my family, and I had to get a restraining order against him. And the last time I seen him, he said, he called my mom and he says, I have some of her stuff and I just want to give it to her. And um, my mom passed on the message, and I said, okay, I'll go meet him. And he kidnapped me and by gunpoint and raped me and beat me for 2 days. And I jumped out of a 2-story window. And it was at that point that I knew, and before that, I OD'd twice, right? Because I didn't care, right? God's gonna take me. There's got to be something better than this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but that was at my own hands, on my own terms, not at somebody else's terms.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed everything. When somebody tries to take your life, you realize very quickly that you're not ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and then you had mentioned that you hid from your daughter for 2 weeks, and told her that you were just on vacation, so that because she was completely unaware of the lifestyle that you were sort of leading.
I was very good at hiding things. I was a functioning addict. I was functioning in my dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
There is organized chaos, right?
Mm-hmm.
In my dysfunction. There is a method to my madness, always.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at that time, I went to the clubhouse and they patched me up, and I told them, I'm sorry, but I'm out. And they say, like, once you're in, there's no walking out. Well, I walked out.
Mm-hmm.
And they helped me walk out, and I walked out with respect.
Nice.
And they wish me well,
Uh-huh.
and because I never owed them anything. I paid everything cash, and it was on my own terms.
Mm-hmm.
But there is that function in the dysfunction, right?
Mm-hmm.
That survival instinct was very strong, because I was forced to survive at such a young age.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So when you made the decision that enough is enough and I'm out, what, like, did you seek any, like, NA or any other sort of modality to start your healing journey?
Yeah. Well, I went to rehab and I got kicked out, and
I'm sorry to laugh, but it's becoming a bit of a thing where it's like, how ridiculous that you get kicked out of somewhere for showing the symptoms of your disease.
Hang on, let's hear why. Yeah. Let's hear why she got kicked out.
Okay, let's hear why she got I'm sorry.
Before we start judging.
I'm not judgmental at all.
Well, I got kicked out because somebody had confided in me and said that they were thinking of self-harm. And I didn't know what to do. And so I shared with my roommate, and they twisted around and told the counselor that I've reached the anonymity rule. And the counselor that she went and told, we really didn't, I, she wasn't very nice. She was, full of herself, and she had no compassion. Mm-hmm. So, she's what you would call a dry drunk.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so am I justified in my bashing there? Is that okay?
Yes, you are.
I got the approval there? Okay,
yeah,
good.
Screw that place.
Okay. Screw that place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
Screw that place. No. And then, I tried several AA meetings, NA meetings. And then if I went to the AA meetings and told them that I was an addict, they would look at me and, like, oh, you're in the wrong meeting, Mm-hmm. And I was like, I have an addiction, just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there again, like being judged and not being accepted just kind of triggered those feelings when I was a child. So, it would be off again, on again, off again, on again, on the wagon, off the wagon, because everywhere I turned around, it was like nobody gives, nobody cares, right? Mm-hmm. Then I go to the NA meetings, and they were good, right? They were good, but I mean, I was drinking too, right? So it was like one or the other, you know?
In that phrase.
Oh, so no, I don't do one or the other.
Do it all, baby.
I do it all.
So I'm just going to interrupt for one quick second. We have a question coming in, and I'm clicking the wrong button again, from Amber Melnick. Would like to know, thank you for your question, Amber, what does dry drunk mean?
Dry drunk means the person that doesn't consume alcohol but still has the mentality. So it's like still the narcissistic behavior, and can I like to call it the holy roly, attitude, right? Oh, thou shalt not drink, Yeah. So it's still an active behavior, but just not consuming alcohol.
Thank you for that clarification, Onyx. So, so you're in and out of various meetings trying to find your people, and feeling like you're not really finding your people. So what next?
So I just started meditating, started going for walks, started connecting to my inner being, my inner soul, nurturing and really finding the root of what was wrong, and removing people's, places, and things from my life. That much I did take out of seeking. So I had some tools, just not all the tools, but I applied those tools to the tools that I had within me. And then I found psilocybin. And I mean, I could always continue to use psilocybin, but I found that during my cravings, and I would use mushrooms, and I wouldn't have those cravings. They weren't as strong, and my bouts of depression and my withdrawals were manageable, and I would go longer periods without using, and
So is that where, like, during one of your ceremonies, is that where Onyx came from?
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Yeah. So I went on a shamanic journey, and I went deep in that journey. That was a 16-hour journey, and wow. Yeah, it was pretty profound. And it was like the Metatron cube and the Merkaba
Hmm.
cube, and they merged into one, and inside was this black dye with luminescent around it, and inside I sat right in the middle of it with this glow around me, and um, I felt safe. I felt reborn. I felt anointed, and uh, that's where they told me that I was Onyx, the
Cool.
keeper, Onyx Knight, the keeper. Yeah.
That's so, it so fascinates me, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if I'd have the brave, like the guts to do a 16-hour trip, but that's I it'd be so neat to experience that though.
It is. You learn a lot about yourself, and you just you really, the journeys are so healing, and they changed my life in so many ways. They they put back those fractals of my childhood, and they healed me from the inside out, quite literally.
Beautiful. So how long have you been on your healing path?
I've been on my healing path for, I've been sober and clean for 23 years, but I think I've always been on a soul's journey my whole life.
Hmm. 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 Fair enough. And I meant more specifically the recovery element of it. You know, with
Uh,
the language these days, I'm never quite sure what to call it. So I'm sorry if that was a
yeah,
little bit of a vague question.
23 years. But I've been facilitating healing journeys for the past 10.
Okay. So you help other people. Uh, I forgive me, I don't know the terminology, but I think it's the holding space, uh,
Holding sacred space. Yeah.
holding sacred space. Okay. So
Yeah.
what does that like? What does that entail?
So holding sacred space, I do consultation, and I get to the root of the problem. I don't dig. I let the person do the work, and we together come to like, where did it all start? And it's usually childhood trauma,
Hmm.
and it always stems from there. And so we go in and we do the deep work. So when was the first time um, you felt um, hurt or anger or unsafe? What made you feel unsafe? Do you remember who made you feel unsafe? And what was your earliest memory, and where does that come from, and who was it? And we go to that very, very first memory, right?
Okay.
And psilocybin really helps open that up, and I just hold space for them when they're in the active journey. I do a guided meditation to bring them to that safe place, to let them know that they're safe. And because that's really important when you're doing
Hmm.
this work, because you just don't want, I mean, anybody can eat a bunch of mushrooms and go, yay, I'm healed. No, it doesn't work that way. You can do this harm reduction, right?
Hmm. Well, and I think that, it's an important point that you just made there because I think there's a lot of misconception that that is what is going on. It's just a bunch of people tripping balls in the forest or something, but it's a lot. That's fun too. But anyways,
Yeah.
it's a much more controlled sort of endeavor than
Yeah.
just a free spirits in the forest naked under the
Yeah.
moon or something like that. So
However, that's fun too.
it is fun too. I will admit that. So I have a question coming in from our good friend Dana. Thanks so much for your question, Dana. And she wants to know, did you have any negative effects after the journey, emotionally or mentally?
Oh, that's a good question.
Hmm.
Any negative effects? life was a negative effect from a reaction from years of trauma. So after a journey, it's all about perception. Like, what does she mean about negative effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's releasing as you're integrating after the journey, and still we do a lot of journaling after, right?
Okay.
I just don't say, okay, well, bye, we'll talk later. It was nice. Yeah. No, there's a series of follow-up counseling that I do with them. And of course, I mean, it's trigger response, or it's trigger release, it's somatic. So there can be dreams, there could be, of course, the body is still releasing trauma. However, you are more prepared for it, and it's not coming from a space of where your somatic is triggered. So, where you get like the fight or flight, you go, oh, right, I remember that happened. And then you're able to hold space for that feeling. And then you're able to hold space and recognize it and release it with love, and you're gentle on yourself.
So it's kind of more like you're in like the role of observer as opposed to the experiencer. However, you're still cognizant of the fact that this is your own experience. It's just there's no emotional.
That's right.
Not that same sort of emotional attachment to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and psilocybin is really great in that aspect, because it shows us that it helps repair the synapses in our brains, and so that we can make those connections. And that when we're triggered, it gives us the ability to react in a different way. It's our body reacts so much differently than we're really in the active trauma state when we're triggered.
I've got another question coming from another good friend on the channel here. Her name is Mary Loonskin. She would like to know, and thank you for your question, Mary, where do you source your medicine, and how is it a clean supply?
Who's your dealer?
Yeah, I grow it in my backyard. She does live on a farm, so.
Yeah. Where's the plug at?
I do source my own, because specifically for that reason, because I know where it's coming from. The spores, I do culture my own, and I use strains that are, how would I say, they're very good strains, very strong strains. And yeah. Okay. So I don't source out of other.
You're not on the dark web sourcing that stuff.
Yeah, no, because I don't know where what they do or how they, and I like my medicine to be clean. So yeah,
I would imagine as true to nature as possible, given the purpose of it. You want it to be as
that's right.
True to form as possible.
And thank you for bringing that healing to the community in a responsible way.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, I agree. And our good friend Chris Jordan, I think you know that guy, don't you? Maybe
I do. Hey, what's up, brother?
We saw you guys.
We saw you guys
inspiring together at the Health and Wellness Expo.
He's amazing. Yeah. This month of October, I dedicated to my journey. As a healer, we still have to do the work, right? And you can only heal others as much as you are healed. And so I really dug deep, and I had those tough conversations with aspects of my childhood and aspects of my life. And yeah, he was amazing in helping me kickstart that journey with some amazing Campbell ceremonies.
Oh yeah. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. We keep hearing like really great things about it, so it's great that that's taking place.
I
And
highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. It's rough. It's hard. The healing is hard, but you know what? What's harder is sitting with with the trauma for all these years. That's even harder
hmm
than showing up for yourself and because you deserve it. You deserve a life of freedom.
hmm
You are enough.
hmm just gonna bring his comment back up on screen here, and he says integration is the most important aspect after a journey. It's more difficult than the journey. It's a rough effing ride. La, lol.
True, truth, truth.
Thank,
Yes,
thanks, Chris.
absolutely.
And Amber Melnick has a question. Thanks for your question, Amber. She says, do you ever have to explain what a trigger response is to people? And if you do, how do you explain it? I struggle with this because people think it's an excuse.
A trigger response is not an excuse. It's when like your body shakes. You can't breathe. You're sweating. You have that fight or flight response. Your body is reacting to um, a memory that was traumatic for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if a child, let's say, gets bit by a dog, and
Mm-hmm.
further on down the road, this child just sees a dog on the other side of the street, just starts shaking,
Mm-hmm.
and the dog's on the other side of the street, and it's far away, but that's still a trigger response, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
um,
I think that'd be that would be like saying somebody who's scared of flying to say to them, it's an excuse that you don't want to get on the airplane, which is
yeah,
it's ridiculous.
yeah,
So,
yeah, it's insensitive for sure.
yeah, I agree.
And I think that's more damaging than the comment itself.
hmm hmm so, I mean, like I've done mushrooms. I don't think I've ever had a 16-hour experience, but
Not on mushrooms.
not a lot of mushrooms. So that's another show.
Try it.
Don't put me on the spot like that. My parents might be watching.
I'd love to hold space for you.
So I'm just kind of curious, like, so okay, to put this into perspective, I know we've had Kambo practitioners on, like Chris, another young lady named Chrissa. We've had ibogaine individuals talking about the experience, and one common thread I've noticed between those two medicines is the language of it's very difficult. So because there's like the purge and there's this kind of a thing. So I've personally tried mushrooms. I've never actually vomited from it. But
Oh, you
when
can.
we're talking like a 16-hour sort of a deal, what does that change? Like, is it kind of more likely?
It's the integration, the ego death. So let's talk about the ego death,
Let's
right? The
do that,
ego
please.
death. Yeah. So the ego death is when your body separates, your conscious and subconscious separates.
Okay.
And a lot of people fight that, right? Because we're so used to living in our conscious mind,
hmm
and our subconscious is where, where we are, right? Our spirits when we journey. So when we separate those two, when we start going into the trip, or into the journey, or into that space, that dimensional space, we call it the ego death. And that's a hard transition,
mm
when you're starting to take off.
mm
Um, However, once you're there, some people have a really hard time with it, and some people just really surrender to the experience.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This weekend was a great example of that.
Okay. So do you, for anybody who may be even considering this avenue, like if they were to have space with you, like, can you generally get a sense of when things might be getting a little too intense for that individual? And then in that
100%.
instance, what sort of things do you employ to help kind of make them feel safer again, or however I'm clearly not very versed in this as far as so how do you help with that?
Well, first, we just don't jump right into it.
Okay.
There's a series of conversations that take place and screening to make sure that they're able to participate in a sacred journey.
Okay.
And to make sure that they are of sound mind, that there's no hidden mental illness like schizophrenia or anything. They're not on any antidepressants or anything like that.
Okay. So
that can contradict that.
Would that disqualify a person, or generally?
Generally, for me, I would prefer that the person is not on any antidepressants or any SRIs or TRIs or anything, because it can interfere with the psilocybin.
Okay. And when you say interfere, does that mean it kind of caps it and prevents that next level?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, and it's not a good thing. I've had actually one gentleman say that he was off of his antidepressants for 6 months. I prefer 6 months to a year, because I mean, I've had people say, oh yeah, I would like to come in and journey with you, and like they think it's a party. No, this is not a party. This is about healing. Right? This is about doing the work. Right?
So you're not a trip sitter, just to be clear for anybody. No. This is the real deal. This is serious business, really.
It is. Yeah.
And I've got sorry.
Go ahead.
I have another question coming in from Dana. And it's she wants to know, if someone has done years of trauma work, could a journey allow one to go deeper within and do deeper work yet? And would something like this be considered a relapse? Just very curious.
Well, I could consider it not a relapse, but it's all one's perception, right? Psilocybin is not addictive, and I think if you're using it in healing, I don't think it's a relapse.
I'd have to agree with you 100% there.
Yeah. I think if you are relapsing, that would be relapsing in your substance, not to do the work. But if you're showing up for yourself and really doing the work, then in the name of healing to release that trauma, of course, I don't think that's a relapse. I think I honor that. Yeah.
I would say maybe a relapse into behavior as well. I'm sure that someone can abuse psilocybin, into that.
Well, I mean, that would be called a spiritual bypass. Right?
What's that? Tell us about that.
A spiritual bypass is like love and light, right? And then not doing the work, not doing the deep work. As healers and facilitators, there's not everybody, and some it's like an evangelist. you have,
go ahead.
you have some Tammy Faye Bakers, and some people can really Yeah, that's kind of a bit of a touchy subject when it comes to spiritual bypass and healers, because some are there to do the work and some are just there
Mm-hmm.
in
Largely
the name of doing the work.
to collect the money.
Mhm.
Yes. So, anyways. So, another question I had,
Love at
you
night.
you keep referring to somatic, and somebody recently used that term, and I was not familiar with it. So, I'm going to assume that not everybody knows what somatic means. Can you please elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Well, somatic trigger is when your nervous system just really, you have no control over your nervous system.
Okay.
It's a reaction, it's a trauma trigger, and it's a very serious one. PTSD are notorious for that as well. And it can happen at any time, any place, and you don't know why. It just does.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I think that did you want me to read that comment by Chris, or because it flashed up?
Sure.
So Chris had another comment saying that abusing psilocybin would be considered the psychonaut spiritual bypass. I went through it with psilocybin and ketamine. It's a part of the journey. Can you clarify what that means? Yeah. I read it like I had a clue what I was saying, but I'm like.
So, I mean, ketamine is that feel-good drug, right? And so is mushrooms. Mushrooms can be that feel-good drug too.
Mm-hmm.
So what he means is that we feel good. We're like, I love you, man, and but not doing the work. You're just numbing yourself. You're in that constant state of, in the psycho state, the psychedelic state.
Okay.
Just yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Question.
Okay, Dan has a question.
So, having read that comment that Chris just put up about abusing psilocybin, has that been a part of your journey? Have you ever found yourself turning to it more than was actually healing as an
In the
escape?
beginning, absolutely. Until I did my shamanic journey, and then it really put me in a place that of healing, and it was so profound that it quite literally changed my life. Yeah.
What do you say?
It was.
Sorry. What do you say?
No,
to
go
someone,
ahead. Sorry.
Like when you see that happening in someone else, like when you are working with someone and they want to take it more than you think they should, how do you handle that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just asked them, like, why? Like, what are their intentions? Even before I start, right? I asked, what are your intentions? What do you want to achieve? And usually I'll introduce them on a microdosing schedule first before suggesting any kind of sacred journey.
Okay.
Yeah, just to introduce them into the psilocybin, because if they're going to start to do the work, then they should start small first, right? And they should get integrated, introduced into mushrooms. You just don't go and boom, here's a sacred journey, and they have no clue on how to handle it. So it can be overwhelming, and it can be intimidating. So I very responsibly nurture them into a microdosing program, and then I monitor how they respond to that, even before I consider taking them into a sacred journey.
Okay. Wow. That sounds amazing. So I think that we have pretty much come to the end of questions and comments from from our viewers. I have like a million, but that's we don't have time for all that. So I just want. Do you have anything that you would like to leave us with tonight?
His story does not.
I'm sorry, somebody squeaked one in here. Dana.
Damn it, Dana.
Damn it, Dana. No, thank you very much, Dana. We appreciate that. She would like to know, what do you do in a case where the proper intention is there, but there's a lot of fear? That's a great question.
It is a great question. And that's where I come in, and we talk about that fear in great depths. Where does that come from? Where does it stem from? And we really dissect that whole process around fear.
Mm-hmm.
And because fear can be triggering, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can have a whole, it could lead up to a whole bunch of different emotions and responses. So,
Mm-hmm.
And fear is very real. It can be, it could be debilitating.
Mm-hmm.
I got one last question for you. So, can fear be dangerous when going into a psilocybin journey?
Yes, it can be.
Mm-hmm. In what?
Yes, it can be.
In what way?
Well, it is psychoactive, right? So it's a hallucinogen.
Mm-hmm.
So, fear, the acronym for fear is false realities appearing real.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that because when you're in the state, what you see is like you're hallucinating. So you can be fearful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could have snakes or bugs coming out of your arms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
well, and we've all heard those
out, right?
horror stories of people having those sort of experiences. So, and I think that's kind of what I was wondering before, like if you encounter somebody who's having that fear response and it's getting too intense,
you usually remove them out of that space, and you can very easily change that, right? You can change. It's just like when somebody's having a panic attack, right? Mm-hmm. You remove them, you remove all the senses, and you remove them from, you tell them that they're safe, and hey, let's go outside, like you remove them from whatever situation, change the environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Part of harm reduction, yeah.
And we've got Amber would like to know, Amber Melnick, thank you again for your question, Amber. Where do you go for the journey? Is it beneficial to what I would call a functioning alcoholic, or let's say a teenager struggling? Great question, Amber.
Come again? I'm sorry.
Amber would like to know, where do you go for the journey? Is it beneficial to what I would call a functioning alcoholic, or let's say a teenager struggling?
I think it's all on perception, right? And it's very based on the individual, mm-hmm. where they're coming from and what their background is, because everybody's very unique, and their needs are very unique, but their traumas are also very real, and they come from a very real place. Mm-hmm. So it could be like coming from a place of like, an alcoholic. It can help people quit drinking. It can help a teenager find themselves, their inner peace. It's hard being a teenager, of course, right? Mm-hmm. And it could, but I wouldn't recommend, either or, without like for myself, sitting with somebody and going through the process with them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm a very, very hands-on, I guess you would say, practitioner. I guess. It's very important to me that I provide a safe and very well structured situation, and that I'm able to hold space for them and let them know that they are safe to heal, right? That they trust in me, and they know 100% that I have them, right? That and there's a trust that is built there,
which I assume would kind of take shape during that microdosing sort of lead up there.
Yeah.
Now, sorry, yeah. I know we were winding down, and now I've got questions again. So I was just wondering, like, because you mentioned that you monitor the microdosing phase. So, like, I'm curious, like, because everybody's different, everybody metabolizes everything differently. Like, how does one know, or how do you recognize if maybe their dose is a little too high, or if it's like not quite enough? You know, because like my understanding of a microdosing is you're supposed to be functional. So what is the baseline for determining functionality?
The baseline is a change of mood, right?
Okay.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being your absolute worst and 10 being your best day ever, right? And where would you fall into that within the next 2 weeks of microdosing?
Okay.
And then we would alter, like,
so if you've had like 14 days of your best day ever, you might be on a little too much.
A little bit, yeah. Okay. But I switch it up every week. I change the dosing schedule every week, so your body doesn't build a resistance to it. And I can usually tell if the person's like, hey, how's it going? How are you? Oh, everything's great. Everything's fine. And then, it's like, yeah, no, I'm not, No,
yeah. We're just going to tap that down a smidge.
Yeah. We're just going to, maybe take half of that, please. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I really encourage that I call them once a week to do a checkup, and I'll spend as much time as they're I like to sit with them for about an hour and just talk.
Oh, wow.
And because healing that trauma is really it's important, and they're important, and they deserve to live a happy and healthy life, and to know that they're worth it, and to know that their trauma does not define them, and to know that there is hope, and that that they can love themselves in such a way that they don't have to seek it in anything else. They just have to look within.
Well, that's beautifully put, Onyx. And I knew from our conversation at the expo here this weekend that you were going to be just a wonderful guest, and you've exceeded my expectations. You're just a beautiful human being, and I thank you so very much for coming and sharing your wisdom and your journey with us. It's been just remarkable. Thank you. So on that note, and my little girl is calling me.
Yeah, and I can't leave.
And Dan can't leave either because we're locked in here. But is there anything that you'd like to leave us with this evening?
If they want to reach out and they're curious about microdosing, or curious about Sacred Journey, I'm on Instagram, Onyx Sacred Journey, and or they can shoot an email at soulride999@outlook.com, and just know that they are enough. They are enough, and there is hope, and whatever I can do to help, I'm here. Even if it's just to talk, I'm always here.
Okay. Beautiful. Thank you so very much, Onyx.
Want to throw a shout out to tonight's sponsors, Healing Heart Cambos.
Yes.
Cambo, Chris, Jordan, thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
support, my brother.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to learn more about Cambo, reach out to Healing Hearts Cambo on Facebook. He's awesome. I'm done.
He's amazing. I love that guy.
Yeah, he's awesome. Okay.
Yes.
We are going to end it on a high note, no pun intended. Yeah, I know my jokes have been terrible today. So one thing we didn't do was the midway.
Oh, do it right now.
Okay, so I just quickly before we go, I'd like to mention that tonight's episode was also brought to you in part by Prairie Harm Reduction in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Prairie Sky Recovery Center in Leipzig, Saskatchewan, the Elizabeth Fry Society of Saskatchewan, and Stronger Together Canada peer-led support groups by Mums Stop the Harm. To learn more about our sponsors, get on our email list, check out upcoming streams and more, check out www.hardknockstalks.com. While you're there, help us support the platform and pick up some merch from the shop. All right, there, I've done my job. Okay, my dear, we're going to let you go for the evening. Try to drive the speed limit home.
Thank you so much. I got my yayas out on the way here. It's all good.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, and I hope to stay in touch with you.
Namaste.
Take care. Okay, everybody, that's it for us tonight. Have a wonderful